Hey Jay, thank you, buddy. And thanks for asking me to speak tonight. Um, my name's Kevin, and I'm an alcoholic. Um, it's always interesting. I was moving around a little bit before the meeting, and one of the things I think about often. I'm down here in Miami, and I got here about 12 years ago by accident. I had sobered up in AA just outside of Washington, D.C. in 1986. And uh, and in just before my 24th anniversary, and my little sister may be sitting in here, but you know, uh, I went to a wedding with my sister in Washington, D.C. And I walked upstairs to the reception and I ordered from the bartender a soda water with lime. I mean, that's what I ordered. I mean, I'd done that thousands of times. I hadn't thought about a drink, and probably outside of the first few months when I was coming around, it just, the obsession to drink was just lifted from me. Um, and there's a story in the book uh, about a guy that said he didn't have necessarily any pressing problems or worries on this particular day, and neither did I. And he was also in Washington, D.C. The water was dancing on the Potomac River as the sun was going down. It was a beautiful night. I was with my sister. Uh, Now, that's not to say I didn't have some stuff going on. It's just I just wasn't thinking about it that night. So when I ordered that soda water with lime, subtle as this disease is, the bartender instructed me at that point, well, I just have beer and wine at this table. You can go over across the way, and my buddy Tom will get you what you want. And I turned to walk toward the other table. My momentum was moving toward the other table. I turned around to thank the guy, and I spotted a green bottle of Heineken on his table. And I'm going to say this uh, clearly, that without thinking, I turned around and said to the guy, you know what? Let me have one of those. And I said, do me a favor, would you pour that in a glass for me? Because I knew I was going to go sit with my sister. And I go sit down with her, and she, she's my sister. She's seen me drunk, and she knew me sober. So here I am, nearly just a few weeks before my 24th anniversary. And she said, what the hell is that? And I'm not even 2 minutes into this, and I'm lying. I said, well, it's one of those non-alcoholic beers. She said, well, is it any good? I said, why don't you take a sip and let me know? So she took a bump off that. She said, that's pretty damn good. I said, well, no, no, no shit. And I had three or four more that night. Um, I know this is Alcoholics Anonymous, but hell, I hadn't smoked a joint in 30 years. I smoked one of those on the way home. There was a pack of smokes on the table when I got back. I hadn't had a cigarette in nearly 19 years. Picked up one of those. And I do remember at a certain point that evening going into the bathroom and looking in the mirror. And I was a couple drinks into it. And I mean, honestly, I'm walking down the hallway. I mean, I felt a little bit like Superman, to be honest with you. I thought, well, yeah, I feel pretty good. Uh, I didn't do anything stupid. But when I looked in the mirror, I said, "Oh my God, you and me, we're drinking." And that began a 4 year spin. Um, and there's a story in the book about a guy that was sober for 25 years, and then he drank. And here I am, sober 24 years, and I drank. And it was a drink I did not see coming. And I remember when I came back in just about 12 years ago, there was a guy with about 25 years in the room when I told the story, and he pulled me over after the meeting. He said, "Hey, come here. I want to talk to you." And he said, "Come on, man. Tell me you saw it coming." And I said, I didn't. And I said, here's another thing. Bill Wilson didn't see it coming. Roland Hazard didn't see it coming. Jim didn't see it coming. Fred didn't see it coming. And neither did any of these other 8 people that are described in the first, 40 some pages of the textbook. And he was shocked to hear that. And you know, I make it back after being out for 4 years, same amount of time as that guy. Now, he didn't make it. And I did. And I since I've been back, and if you read the end of that guy's story that was sober for 25 years, it's pretty clear that nobody wanted to be sober more than he did. I mean, probably more than I did, because when I came back, it was just really after being out for 4 years, I'm down here in Miami Beach. Um, I had called a friend of mine. I thought I was calling my friend Rose up in Cape Cod. She had been sober. She was a sober sister friend of mine. And I thought, well, I was really drunk and I picked up the phone. And I thought, well, I'm just going to call Rose and tell her I need a safe place to fall apart. And I dialed this number and this girl picks up. I said, well, this is not Rose. She said, no, it's Danny. I'm a DJ. You and I met in Reno. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to say the same thing to Danny that I was going to say to Rose, because I don't know what else to do. And that's how I got to Miami. It was an accident. I wasn't even trying to come here, man. So I'm not going to talk a lot about my drinking other than to say, uh, when I was younger, my mother and father raised me right. They gave me all the right lessons. My father was a judge. you know my mother loved me and showed it. And athletics was a big part of the family life growing up. Probably saved me from really doing some damage as a young kid. um but I loved alcohol the first time I can remember drinking, and I just fell in love with it. It was everything to me. I mean, every move I made, I measured it by, you know, how close that bottle's going to be. And I never thought, as we talk in here and as Grace would have it, that I would have found uh, God in the bottle, but I did. I took enough drinks where it just moved me to another place. And I know we talk about this quite a bit here, where Roland Hazard is having this conversation with Dr. Carl Jung, and after the doctor, he comes back from living with Carl for nearly a year over there in Europe, and he comes back and he drinks. And he made a statement. He said, I believe I had acquired such a profound knowledge of the inner workings of my mind and all of its hidden springs that relapse was unthinkable. And I really believed that for myself. There's no way I'm ever going to drink again. Yet here I found myself drinking. And I wasn't 6 weeks into it before I got a DUI. That just shocked me. And I really thought I'd be able to manage it. Now that I know what the deal was before, there's no way it's going to hurt me the way it did the first time. I mean, when I was 19, I spun out in an alcoholic, drug-fueled, you know, circus that landed me in a psychiatric facility at the age of 19, where I walked up and down these long hallways babbling to myself. I was in that facility in and out for 2.5 years. I remember, doing the whole thing, the shock treatments, and I got so comfortable in there. I was afraid to leave. I remember my dad coming down to see me every day at 4 o'clock. And one day my father walked onto the ward to see me, and I introduced myself to my father as his father. And, my father, just God bless him. I mean, he didn't even flinch. He just went right into my delusion with me. And when he left that day, he hugged me and he said, "Good night, Dad." And I mean, I as I look back, the longer I'm sober now, the more hearts I could see that I broke, you know, and you know, so, and there were many stories like that, you know, so many girlfriends that were just fine, decent people that did nothing but love me. You know, my wife did nothing but love me, you know, and I just didn't know where to put it, the love. I didn't know where to put it. And I just always felt like you surely that can't be, all that love can't be for me. I remember being in rooms even before I drank, thinking, you know, I just feel so out of place. You know, luckily for me, I hit out on the athletic field. That's how I managed things. And then later, you know, it would become the bottle and other things, you know, where, you know, really became my friends. Um, you know, so I want to share a little bit about that history. Um, I've done things sober that would rival anything I've done drunk. I also wanted to share that with the group. You know, so you know the first when I first come to AA, I walked into a meeting. You know, when I was 26 in this big hospital down there in Northern Virginia, and I walked in there and I thought, well, they had a couple meetings going on. I thought, well, you know, I should probably start out in the baby pool over here. And I walked into this little room and I went in there but 7 or 10 minutes. And this sweet woman who was, she's probably about the age I am now. I thought she was old, but, you know, she just reached over and she patted my hand. She said, honey, I think you want to be out in that other room. This is an Al Anon meeting. And I thought for a minute, you know, well, maybe I should just tell her about my, you know, idiot drunk brother and see if I can pull this off. But there was some kind of something that happened to me that once again, I think I'll refer to as grace, where it just was very clear to me, hey, the game's over, buddy. And I went out to that other room and I started listening to those people. One of the folks I met there was a guy named Jim. And Jim had about 14 months sober at the time. And we went out in the parking lot. We started talking. Hey, where are you from? I grew up in Indiana. He said, okay. You know, we started talking about basketball, and I liked him. And he was about the only person that would speak to me at that point. No, nobody else would really talk to me. My friends were not shocked when they found out I wasn't drinking. I mean, I had a few, but by and large, everybody's like, you know, I'm glad you're not. I mean, our life is easier. I mean, I'm glad your life is easier, Kev, that you're not drinking, but so is ours, you know, because I really was like that tornado in the book. I'd just swing through and I mean, I'd hit stuff I didn't even know what I was hitting. And a lot of times the people I'd affect, they didn't even know who hit them. I was just on a roll. So, you know, all that being said, so Jim and I, some of you guys been around long enough to remember a guy named Sandy Beach. Sandy was living over in Maryland at the time, and he used to do this wonderful step series at the NIH over there at the National Institutes of Health every Saturday morning in Bethesda. And Jim and I would drive over there together and listen to Sandy, and he was funny, and I liked him, and we go there every week, and then Jim and I would drive back and talk about some of the things that Sandy was sharing with us, and that was my first introduction to the big book or the steps. I mean, I was too ill to open up the book. I just didn't. I couldn't. There, you say there were those that cannot or will not. It's not that I didn't want to be sober. It's just I didn't. If you'd asked me to pick up the book and read anything at that point, I didn't have it in me. And so Jim saw that. And so he lived the book right in front of my face. He just lived it. I later saw that. I didn't see that then, but you know, we'd be in the car. He goes, I'm going to stop in here at these gas stations, say hello to this guy. And I'd look in there and it's like, oh, some guy from one of the meetings. You know, we're going to go over here and do this. Why don't you meet me at the hospital and get some ice cream? And we'd see some doctor and nurse in there that was going to meetings and, you know, and and I liked what he had. So, one day we're driving back from the meeting. I said, well, you think maybe you could be one of those sponsor guys for me? And what he said to me is, he goes, what we're doing is working pretty good, isn't it? And I said, yeah. He goes, why don't we just keep doing what we're doing? And that has been a friendship that's lasted nearly 40 years now. 39 years I've known Jim. And we don't always talk about AA now. We talk about other things that we find interesting. We become friends, you know. I've found people that have become tribe to me, you know. So let me just talk about this. As they say, all went well for a time. There's a term in the book that describes alcohol. Remember alcohol. Why? I wonder why Bill always asked us to remember things that he knew we were going to forget. Remember alcohol is cunning, baffling, and powerful. He knew that we would forget this, that I would forget it. Remember this. And I looked up the word cunning, and it's just powerful. By trickery and deceit, this drink will take me. And so that's my story about how I went out. It was no thought involved at all. Never thought I would drink again, you know. But I was keeping two sets of books in my business. I ended up moving to New York and starting my own company, and the thing was flying end over end. I had a bunch of people working for me, and in the beginning, I say they work with me. We were a family, and in the end, I'm like they work for me. And I remember coming back into the city. I was in New York, and I think, well, these ungrateful people, they don't realize who writes their check. All this subtle stuff that was going on. Had a few resentments. Didn't what was Jim in his story? The guy that had the automobile dealership, and he comes back and he says, I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. I just had all kinds of little stuff tucked inside me and just blowing right by things, and some unfinished business there. Um, so I drink, and I'm out for 4 years. I don't go into all that, but when I came back, I ended up down here in Miami, and there's a dear brother of mine here named Michael, and he was here when I got back, and I ended up walking up the steps to this club down here in South Beach, and I walked into the room, and it was 10 o'clock at night. I thought, if I'm not going to drink, I better get over there and sit around some people that are not drinking. And I walked in there, and there's a beautiful painted tree on the back wall. Anybody that's ever been down here. And I sat underneath that tree in the back of the room, and I began to sob. And I didn't stop for a year. People were looking at me going, have you been to see a doctor? And I'm like, look, man, let me tell you something. Have you ever read the Varieties of Religious Experience? Man, get away from me. Don't put the book in front of me. I don't want you to touch me, but don't leave either. Don't leave. And I picked a chair up in very front of the room as time went on. And I remember I told the room one night, I said, look, I'm going to sit in here, and I'm going to spill my tears and shoot them all over the wall in here until I'm finished. A buddy of mine had a little sailboat, and he said, I heard you need a safe place to fall apart. And I said, yeah. He said, well, come on with me. And he took me out to this little sailboat, and he said, this is where you're going to heal. And it was right behind the AA club. And there was a guy out there, he'd put a kayak on there for me. And that was the beginning of the process. And here was my friend Michael there that evening. And after the meeting ended, we were standing out front, and he just walked out. He was from Toronto. And I mean, in all the years since I've been down here, Michael's maybe been here maybe 4 or 5 times, but he was there that night. And he said, hey, you want to go for a walk? And part of me was like, well, what is he up to? What does he want? But I just said yes. And we started walking. And Michael walked me that night till late. And he put a few bucks in my pocket. He said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Well, why don't you meet me and we'll go for another walk?" And Michael walked me up and down the beach like a wounded horse for a long time. And we would go to meetings, and I just started to really understand the weight of what had happened here. You know, I've got a daughter that'll be 31 in July. The last time I saw her, she was 4. So that was in me. And I remember saying to Michael, "Hey, you know what? Uh, I haven't seen my daughter in a while." He said, "Okay." And then we'd walk a little bit more. I said, "It's been a long time since I've seen her." And then a little while later, I sat in a meeting and I just raised my hand. I said, "Look, I haven't seen my daughter in 8 years." And I just put my head in my hands and I just blew apart right in front of everybody. And, there were a few people that knew what they were looking at. Here's this guy had 24 years and he's back and he's just as big a mess as anybody that's never been in this room. And, you know, but I just knew if I didn't do that, that who knows where I would have ended up. I remember waking up one morning, I had 46 cents in a coffee cup on the boat. And I'm like, hell, I don't have enough money for a cup of coffee or to put $1 in the basket. And this guy called me up 5 minutes after I'm looking at the 46 cents. And he goes, "Hey, I'm over here on the shore. I got a coffee for you." And I got up there and went to the meeting. And I come out of the meeting and another guy says, "Hey, how about some breakfast?" You know, and we went to go eat. Another guy calls and says, "Hey, if you can get your kayak around the corner to wax this little boat for me, I'll give you a little money." And just little things like that would happen. And a guy gave me a job, and here I was, had this big company in New York and everything, and here I was down to nothing. And in that way, all that big life that you build that you don't want to lose. Well, it was all gone now. You know, uh, I mean, if anybody wanted to know where I was between 2009 and 2013, it was no way I was going to tell anybody what kind of nonsense was going on, you know. So the process begun again, and it's like it's not like I didn't get good information when I was there that 24 years. I did. My life was solid. My life was working. I met a woman that became my wife. We made this beautiful little girl, you know, and my head just got too big for me. It was all very subtle. I mean, I didn't even recognize what was going on. And so I really started looking at the work a little bit deeper and, the steps. Like there's something I missed last time. I remember going to meetings that first 24 years going, the first 7 minutes of the meeting, they're reading how it works. They're reading, I'd walk in 7 minutes late because, I'm a busy guy, you know, stick around after the meeting. I'd say hello to a few guys or, you know, I'd go meet some guys for coffee once a week or whatever. But hey, I got a business to build. I got to, now I've got a second chance, so I'm gonna get after it. And so, and that's the thing, isn't it? You know, that we need each other. It's taken me, I'm kind of a slow learner. I'll be 65 here in a couple of weeks. And I was sitting, I don't know if it was last night or this morning, I was sitting there looking at my skin. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is we're not getting any younger, man. And so what am I going to do with the rest of these minutes? So, from that big life, uh, where I'm at right now is I have a little place here, and it's on the water. It's nothing fancy, and I have a little nonprofit that I take guys in, and and uh, there's some in the book that says, of those who come to AA and really try, half of those guys get sober at once, and that's the way they stay. Well, I thought that guy was going to be me. But here's the thing that they say, and I've go, what does it mean to really try? You know, uh, 25% of that group gets sober after some relapses. I'll talk to you when you're drunk. What was Bill was drinking in his kitchen when that phone rang. Um, I don't know where that came from, but you know, and then it says among the remainder, those who stay on, their lives get better. Now I've got folks that I've known for 15, 20, 30 years. One guy's, I've been working with him for 12 years now. And he'll get a few months or he'll get a year and then he'll drink. And then he'll get 3 or 4 more months and he'll drink. But, I have a little group here every Wednesday that comes for coffee. And some years ago, I decided to kind of open it up a little bit because, one things that the fellowship gave me is that our way of life has its advantages for everybody. And I opened up the group. So most of the guys in here have been in recovery on some level, whether it's the 12 steps or other things that they do to stay in their body and stay in their shoes, which is something I had a hell of a time doing. I mean, I don't even see when I'm out of my shoes. I need you to show me that and go, hey, what are you doing over there? Because I've got such a gift of convincing you that I'm where I belong that you know it takes me a while to open up and really tell you what the deal is. So we do this thing every week, and it's a beautiful group of men, and it's just we talk about things that matter here, and this group has grown over the years. Some of these guys will call and they'll need a bed or a shower or something to eat or even sometimes a drink, you know. And these guys will come over. I'll put them in the shower and put a little food in them and play them some music and feed them and these sorts of things. I'm not telling you that stuff to impress you, but I got to keep my door open now, and that's the trade-off for all the years I had it closed. You know, I mean, my repeated visitations with isolation is what brought me to sit in this chair and talk to you all tonight. So, I mean, I just couldn't be. I used to hear these guys when I'd first come around, and these guys say, "Oh, I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic." It made me nauseous to hear these guys talk like that. Until I've been fortunate enough to work with enough people over the years uh, that I can watch somebody in front of my face be apprehended by grace right in front of me, you know, and they didn't do the steps yet. I mean, I don't know how that happens, but they are one way, and then all of a sudden they're a brand new human being. So, I mean, I know there's a lot of ways to be sober. Even the book tells us that. I mean, upon therapy of the alcoholic, we don't have a monopoly. Now, the 12 steps are the central part of my life today. But I do so all to understand that there's a group of people that just live right. I've got friends that are outside the fellowship and they drank kind of a little bit like I did when we were growing up. And there was a moment they just went, hey, I got to get together. And that's what they were able to do. I said that to myself, and the things I swore I'd never do were the things I found myself doing. And the stuff I promised myself I was going to do, I couldn't seem to do them. It was a real dilemma for me. Even tonight, I kind of, was joking with myself, like, hey, I'm cutting myself off. No more coffee for you today, Kev. Like as I'm walking to the kitchen to pour another cup of coffee. Now that's not alcohol, but that's how I drank, you know. And there are other things that have come up over the years in sobriety where, you know, where it says we tried to hold on to our old ideas. That was a meditation that I used not last year was what are the old ideas I'm hanging on to, and am I willing to look at old information in a new way? So whenever I have the blessing of taking somebody through the step work, and I'm just speaking for myself, I've come to believe deeply that that 12 step is a meditation, is what it is for me. I don't know what's good for you. You know, I don't know what's good for you, but when I'm in meditation, and it doesn't have to be something formal, but you know, it's nearly impossible for me to be afraid when I'm thinking about you. Fear hits me when I'm thinking about me. What's in it for me? What's going to happen if this happens? How's that going to turn out? Uh, and I was always, you know, for a large part of my life, trying to master the art of, leveraging uh, another human being. Whether it was in the love department or in the business world, I thought, well, hey, man, business is business. If you're not smart enough to pay attention to what you're doing, I mean, how's it my fault that you got run over? And now I won't get involved in any business transaction unless everybody wins. That's a new thing for me. Uh, I have a lot of young people in my life. We were talking about my daughter. I'm keeping an eye on the clock here. We're doing okay, huh, Jay? You know, Probably the biggest wound in my world is my relationship with my daughter because I always had this dream that when I built my company and got married that I was going to have bunch of kids just climbing all over me. you know uh when my daughter was 4, I bounced a child support check because I sold my company and started another one. That was another thing. I just wasn't listening to anybody. I had this company that was just throwing money at me. I thought, well, I'm the king of this deal. Maybe I could be the king of this other thing. And so I told my wife, well, I'm going to sell the company and I'm going to start this brand. And she said, are you what? And in my mind, I'm like, well, you didn't have anything before you met me. You didn't build what I built. Just I know what I'm doing. She was calling friends of mine to fly to New York, try to talk sense to me. I wouldn't listen to any of those guys. I didn't listen to any of the people that were, had my best interest in mind. I said, look, I'll show you. I'll show you. And so the weekend of her 4th birthday, I bounced a child support check. And, you know, as the judge would have it, child support and visitation were separate conversations at the time. And my ex-wife was calling me going, and there were messages from my daughter going, Daddy, call me. And I remember sitting in this chair, just frozen in fear, just going, oh my God, I just can't do this. And, and then I tried to hide in work and all the other places that we tuck ourselves and some time passed. Now, my daughter and I communicate now, but she's not ready to see me. And, one of the things I've learned in AA, that my life is absolutely perfect based on the way that I've lived it up to this moment. And so is hers. And another thing that I've learned is that I was talking to my buddy Herb, lives out in Palos Verdes. He helped me tremendously when I came back. And, I said, I wonder if my daughter knows that the hugs I send her every night are coming from me. And he said, what? He said, why don't you just sit there and send her that hug? And and when she gets it, hey man, that's a good thing, Kev. You just do that. And so I started doing that. And I've been doing that for a long time. Like I said, she'll be 31 in July, and she was 4 the last time I held her hand. And you know, I mean, there are some things that, man, I, you know, I have some things in my life that were tremendously regrettable. But I can tell you this, and this may sound crazy based on what I just said. I don't have any regrets because where I sit in the world right now is I feel blessed in ways that are beyond words. There's a French word. The word is blessure, and that's what the name of my little nonprofit, and the root of that word is blessing. And I thought, well, let me look up and see what the definition is, and it was defined as a wound or an injury. And one of the things that AA has taught me is that underneath these hidden caves inside myself are these deep blessings if we'll go digging and find them. And I couldn't do that by myself. I'm like, I needed you guys to like, hey man, hold me up when I saw the truth. I couldn't even sit up in it. Like, wow, your intention was to be this kind of a father, but you ended up being this one. And I mean, that just took my breath away. And the shame and the guilt and the remorse, all the stuff that Bill talked about in his story, and these other folks that, we've met, and people we haven't met yet when they come into the program. Um, I've been granted the ability to see someone's pain before they can even give it a voice. It's just, you know, um, I just don't have words for that gift. I feel like I've been apprehended by grace on so many levels. And I always used to think that I earned my seat here, but I can tell you without question that, man, I didn't earn this. Uh-uh. This was a gift. Um, and sometimes I forget when I'm working with somebody new, and I'm like, God damn, is this guy ever going to get it? You know, are they going? Is this person ever going to get it? I mean, are they really going to try? And one things I'm learning is that still is that if I'll just walk with them a little bit, you know, that things will just shake loose. They just shake loose, and over time, uh, we develop these friendships. I mean, I've got guys that are so touched mentally that they can't read the book. They don't have it in them. And what we do here is we offer those people friendship and fellowship. You know, we talk about the world of spirit being broad and roomy and all inclusive, and we don't leave anybody out. You know, um, these are big lessons for me um, because I was always trying to figure out how I was going to divide up the love. Like I got to keep this much for me, and I can only give so much of this over here. And man, it was so exhausting that I finally came to this, and this is pretty recent, just in the last few years. So I thought, you know, I always hear this people say all there is love. And it was this little voice that just went, well, if that's the truth, then what are you, Kevin, doing? Splitting it up like it's a finite piece of pie or something. And it really hit me that, wow, hmm, you know, uh, and I used to kind of think about, things that I didn't get or some that somebody had more of than I did. And it's like, well, I work with a guy that didn't, his mom, but dad didn't show him the love that my mother and father did. And was just like, well, why don't we practice giving the things we never got and see what happens, you know? That's powerful to watch. It's powerful to observe in others, but when other people are coming to me and you know in a world of pain, there's a lot of pain in the world right now, and you know this fellowship has been like, I mean, I talk to people outside the program often in the same way that I will use language here, and plain language that they can understand, you know, and they'll come and sit and, I've got, it's amazing because I met with a young lady last week and her mom down here on Sunday. We spent the whole day together. And this young lady is 32 years old. She's a year older than my daughter and her mom. And they lost their dad and their husband in an avalanche out in Colorado a few years ago. And we've been kind of working together. Her mom's kind of, you know, done a lot of healing, but yeah, I could see when I was talking to the daughter that there was just a wound there, that there was a rage inside her. And I just said, you know what? I said, you're my new adopted daughter. I've got a lot of adopted young people in my life where they'll call me and go, hey, you got a minute? They'll come in the house and go, hey, uh, can I tell you what's going on in my life? Now, it's not my daughter talking to me, but I'll take it. I'm like, you bet. You bet. And I have so many young people in my life, you know. Over the holidays, some young people about my daughter's age wanted to take me to a Christmas concert around the corner. And I went, and it was just extraordinary. I feel just so blessed. And I know the world is a pretty merciful place, and that, my daughter didn't get to be 31 years old without having to learn how to forgive a few things, and probably ask for forgiveness a little bit in her own world. And I've just got to trust, and I'll send her messages, or I'll send her music. I'll leave a little voice message, every 4 to 6 weeks, and let her know I'm thinking of her. But this Christmas was the first year I didn't hear anything from her, and I just had to remember when I was her age, I didn't want anything to do with my parents either. I was busy. And thank you, brother. So this is an interesting place to finish up, and it's you know, I guess one things I'll say is some of the wounds we just got to learn how to walk with them and sit up straight in it. And this has also been a pretty recent thing, even though I've had a lot of practice at working it out. Um, I really feel like it's working out, and I trust the big chief to direct my movements, and you know I really don't think I'd have it another way than I have it right now. The other thing I wanted to say is that if there's some new people here, and maybe you might be struggling a little bit, or of course I might maybe talk to some people that have been sitting around for a while and going, man, I've been sitting here all these years and something's not right, something's off. you know Maybe look at the tribe and tighten up the tribe a little bit. And it's like, if I'm sitting with Jay every day, and it's like he sees me, he can smell me when I'm coming. He'll go, hey, walking in the room, hey, what's going on? What's happening with you? Because I'm a real good, I'm an escape artist. So listen, man, what a beautiful group here. um, and I just feel so blessed that you asked me to come in here, Jay. And and I think the little voice is just telling me that's enough out of you for tonight, Sullivan. So thank you guys for letting me be here and do this with you tonight. Appreciate it.
Yay.
Thank you, brother.
I think we were all, to use your line, apprehended by grace. Apprehended by grace. Thank you so much.